This is the hour of the brave and the courageous, because now we have lunch, okay, and now it happens that your stomach starts digesting all the food, and then a lot of blood and oxygen goes into that process, which means that your brain starts getting low in oxygen, and that's the reason we Spaniards created siesta, okay, which is like having a nap after lunch. But no siesta for us today, and that's why we are very courageous and brave, and we are here in order to learn more and exchange more and work more. So thank you so much for this effort. I will try to make it worth it. We are going to be speaking about conflict this afternoon, hot topic for us Scrum Masters, and especially for everyone that needs to deal with other human beings, especially when we want to have some kind of collaboration environment. I'm concerned about you people being able to see with the camera here. Are you right? We're having some problems. So better now? Better? Thank you. I'm so sorry. So anyway, you already know me. I'm going to skip this part. I will try to make this some time, even shorter. What's conflict? Okay, sometimes we say, let's talk about conflict. And conflict always has like a negative connotation. It's like, oh, conflict is a bad thing. But conflict doesn't need to be necessarily a bad thing. If we just look to the definition of what's conflict, conflict is disagreement. Okay, you think A, I think B, and that's a conflict. But that doesn't need to be something negative. Like for instance, usually it's because we have different views. We were discussing ego and identity this morning, and we were doing the ballerina experiment. And we were seeing the ballerina spinning. You are seeing the ballerina clockwise. I'm seeing the ballerina counterclockwise. Well, we have a conflict because now we have, conflicting information. That doesn't need to be a bad thing, but usually it derives into discussion and aggression and violence and, bad things. One of the reasons that conflict turns into be something negative is that conflict is personal. It depends on our personal views on the topic that we are discussing. I have my own experience. I have my own knowledge and skills. And of course, every single time I have an idea, it's the best possible idea. Okay? When I have ideas, those ideas are the result of my information available, my knowledge, my experience, my character, my environment, and it produces only one possible solution, which is my idea. And then you tell me that you don't like the idea. When you tell me that you don't like the idea, it's like you are saying that you deny me, that you don't like me, that you don't like my experience, my information, my knowledge. And then I get personal. Instead of discussing the facts, instead of discussing the thing we are trying to solve, I start feeling that you are personally attacking me. And there is the point where conflict turns to be something negative and something that we like to avoid. We also have like emotions playing. Sometimes it's like you are saying something and maybe that something that you are saying is very smart and you are correcting me. And I realize that you are right and I am wrong. But you are a rookie, you are a junior, and I'm a guru, I'm an expert. And then I get so angry because like how you dare correcting me in front of everyone else. That's my ego having an unhealthy behavior. And instead of saying, oh, you're right, you're true, it's better to do this triangle thing instead of doing the square thing. Instead of that, I make it personal. And when I make it personal, because it's about status, who you are, who I am, which is not what we're discussing in fact, then it becomes something negative. So we have this elephant fable. The elephant fable has one first very important use, and it's to prove you everyone that I don't know how to properly draw an elephant. Okay, sorry, that was my best try. But anyway, besides that, which is like trivial information, there's a very beautiful story about 3 blind monks and an elephant. And this is a story that has been told in many different cultures all around the Mediterranean and Asia. It's about 3 blind monks that heard that a circus was in town and that they had an elephant. And they have never met an elephant. They've never but they never have met this kind of animal. And they wanted to meet this animal and feel how an elephant was. So they grabbed the monks to the elephant, and when they arrived, the first monk grabbed the trunk of the elephant. And then the second monk grabbed a leg of the elephant. And the third one grabbed an ear. And then the first monk said, oh, an elephant is like a snake, because he has the trunk. And then the second monk said, no, you're kidding. An elephant is like a pillar, it's like a column. And then the third one was like, you gotta be joking. An elephant is like a blanket, it's like a towel, because he had the ear. And each of them had small part of the truth, was partially right, but at the end of the day, the three of them were wrong. Okay, and this story of the elephant tells us that many times this happens every single day every single day in our companies. We have meetings and we are discussing, we should do this, no, we should do that. And most of the time we are in elephant situations where different people have small parts of the truth, small vision of the elephant, my personal small vision from my role as a tester, my personal small vision from my role as a program manager. Each of them have partial views of the truth. No one has the view of all the truth. In the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tse, it starts saying, one of the translations starts saying, the Tao that can be named and described is not the true and authentic Tao. And that puzzled me for a long time. What's the meaning of the Tao that can be described is not the Tao? And I think my personal interpretation is that once you describe a truth, once you describe a position, an option, an idea, it's not the real thing anymore. It's your interpretation and your vision of the idea. Imagine, Plato, the philosopher, he talks about the world of ideas, and he believed that there was some kind of paradigm, some kind of, like when in programming we have classes, and then the classes have instances. Well, there's a class that is like the perfect idea of all the instances. There's an idea of a chair, and that's a perfect idea. And then we have instances, different chairs all around the world. But once you create a chair, that's not the perfect idea of the chair, because then that's my interpretation of how a chair looks like. The same happens with truth. You are like, this is truth. Well, this is your truth. And your truth is, tinted in the color of your understanding, your knowledge, and your identity, your personality, your ego. Another person can see the ballerina spinning in another direction. So, we have conflict, we have disagreement, and that's natural, considering that we cannot share perfect vision of the same thing. In Agile, for instance, we believe that no one in a company can hold in their head a complete model of the product, a complete description of the product. Because if you had a perfect model of the product, it would be indistinguishable from the product. It will be the source code. So nobody has full source code and full understanding of the source code in their heads. And even if you have all the source code, you don't have the understanding of the customer, and the client, and the market, and the costs, and the revenue streams. Nobody has all that information in their heads. So we believe that it's a better way of having better decisions to mix people together and have people from product side, technology side, finance, and then each of them have a small vision of the elephant. They have a small vision of truth. They have their own interpretation of things. And when we put all them together, guess what? No wonder we have conflict. We have disagreement. But that's a good thing, because we are bringing different information to the desk. There's no conflict when there's only one person thinking. We got rid of conflict. How cool is that? This is like minute number 3 or number 4 of the talk. You have a solution for conflict. Have only one person thinking at your company. Then there's no more conflict. But of course we don't want that. We have been fleeing from that model of the very intelligent person taking all the decisions. Conflict is natural, and conflict can be a good thing, because it means that we are bringing different parts of the puzzle. But then, we are human beings, and when someone disagrees with us, we have an emotional response. That's our ego at work. So I'm glad we did the ego talk this morning. So, usually, we respond emotionally only to 3 things. There's only 3 triggers to emotional responses when we have conflict and disagreement. You can use that also for the feedback. When people react back to the feedback, there's only 3 things they can react back to. One is the fact itself. You are saying that this is true, and I don't believe that is true. So basically, you are lying to me, or either that, or you are stupid. And then I react in an emotional way. this person is stupid. How can you say, oh, uncle, you know, the problem is that you're always wearing these pink trousers. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you mean pink trousers? I've never had a pink trouser in my life. And I get emotional because it's like, you are saying something that is so obviously not true. And you're trying to sound that, to make that sound as if it was true. So I get an emotional response to that. The second thing we get emotional about is about the person that is speaking the truth or is speaking the fact. The person that is talking to me. How dare you? Who are you to tell me about that? I have to recognize, recently I had an emotional response. I was at a company, and there was a person that was hired, had been hired in this company, and he wasn't performing very good, but he was like a middle manager. And he was like, oh, I know about this agile stuff. And I'm like, oh, really? Yes. And he said, I'm going to send you some books that you will like about agile. And I was like, I write books about agile, mother freaker. I was all emotional, and I was all my ego saying, what do you mean you are going to send me books? I will write 5 books for you. And at the end of the day, I tried to scan and review the day and say, what was my best moment, my worst moment? And that day I was like, no, my worst moment was when this idiot told me that he was going to send me some books about agile. And then I analyzed the event, and I was like, oh my God, this is ego at work, and this is also, emotional response to conflict. You know, maybe that guy was going to send me the book of my life. Maybe there's a book out there I don't know about, and he sent it to me, and I read the book, and I'm like, oh my God, how didn't I know about this book? Probably I lost the opportunity because I didn't catch up with it, I didn't follow up saying, hey, what about those books you were going to send me? I don't know. If I get so emotional, then I miss an opportunity to bring something new, a new vision. Or maybe this guy, which is something that is starting with things, or an agile, maybe it's interesting to know what are the books he appreciates. Or maybe if the guy is really, really bad, I want to know what books he been reading. In order to know that those are not good books. So there's information in that. And I didn't get that information because I got so emotional and personal about it. So also, the third thing that you can react to the truth, the fact itself, the person giving you the fact, and then you can react to yourself. Like, he's saying that I am clumsy, he's saying that I am stupid, he's saying that I don't know anymore. And then you make it personal because you think that instead of talking about, the new database, oh, let's switch from Sybase to Oracle. I was recently in a company that switched it from Sybase. You remember Sybase? It's still out there doing things. From Sybase to Oracle. Well, some people were really emotional about that. Because they felt, that's my interpretation, but my interpretation is by saying that Sybase is not good and Oracle is better, you are neglecting my decision as a database administrator 10 years ago when I decided that the way to go was Sybase. Now you say Sybase is scrap, we have to move to Oracle, and then I make it personal because I think you are talking about me, about my decision, about my product, about my responsibility. And then I make the conflict about me, and then we create an emotional response to conflict. So the question is, have we been trained to deal with this kind of situations? When we were talking about feedback, one of the things we said is we have to make sure that the people are prepared to receive feedback. Are we prepared to be in conflict? Most of the time the answer is no. And one of the main reasons that we have not been trained to deal with conflict is that the education we receive is very, very individualistic. You get your own grades, and usually you get rated against your colleagues in the class, and you try to have better marks and better grades than them. Because if you have very, very good grades, you have better options to be hired when you are out of school, out of the university. And that has been 25 or 26 years of your life. And I even know some careers. For instance, my wife is a doctor. And as a doctor, I remember that when you end the career in Spain, in order to practice as a doctor, you have to pass an exam, which is like, I don't know how to call that in English, but it's a huge exam. And depending on the marks, you can search, oh, I'm going to be a neuro surgeon, like I'm going to be a brain surgeon or whatever. Or maybe you have to do something else. Maybe it's something that you don't like. So if you're like, if I want to be a surgeon, I have to be very, very good at that exam and get a very, very good mark. so I get to choose first which is the one career that I want to follow. This is more or less the process. So what happens? That people do not share their notes and their books. Because if I share my notes and my books and my study materials with you, then you might have better marks than me, and then you might become a surgeon and not me. So we are very individualistic in our trainings, in our learnings, in our schools and universities. We don't know how to work as a team. The closest thing to teamwork that we have experienced as teenagers and as students is playing football. And not even in those immoral cases. Okay? So we don't know how to deal with this kind of conflicts, and we don't know how to deal with different opinions without getting personal and without getting emotional about that. So negative conflict, we experience conflict as a competition. That's very Spanish. Okay? We Spaniards, we love to win arguments. And it doesn't matter if you need to lie or to bring facts that are not true, you have to win the argument. Okay? We really, really enjoy, we are passionate about arguing for the sake of arguing. Okay? We like to argue about everything. Okay? A good argument is something we enjoy a lot. And you know, that's the reason that I always make the joke that when we started doing planning poker in Spain, I had to explain to people that this is not about winning a game of cards. I'm gonna play the right card, suckers. Okay. So no, it's not about winning. Okay. It's about learning. It's about collaborating and talking to each other. So yeah, it's not a contest. A conflict is not a contest. It's not personal. It's not an attack. But sometimes we feel like it is. So, in order to engage conflict in a positive way, we have to be open to otherness. This morning in the ego talk, I was talking about otherism. When we talk about me and the other and we create a separation. Instead of when we practice level 4 listening and we bring that together and we start to care about what the other person is feeling and be really genuinely curious about what the other person is experiencing and how this situation is affecting this person. And then we open to otherness, to the experience of other people. Instead of worrying about my experience or what I'm supposed to be delivering and providing, open to others. That's a good way to engage conflict and make it a positive thing. So, one of the problems we have is that the tendency of our managers, which have not been trained on how to engage on positive conflict, and for many facilitators and Scrum Master, when you are not being trained in how to engage positive conflict, what you do is you try to avoid conflict. That's very Scrum Man, okay? You go to your rooms. You go to your room, stop playing, stop arguing, go do your homework. And then the conflict is over. And it feels better because there's no more conflict anymore. And there's no more, heart pounding and stomach clenching and stress coming. I felt all these kind of things when I've had conflict in a professional environment. And I still struggle with it. It's not like I mastered conflict and personal emotions. But I'm getting better over time with the practice. So this is what I'm sharing with you. So the problem is that if we see conflict as something to solve and something to avoid, instead of something to navigate and learn about, then we have many, many options to go down on the curve of, it's not here. You remember Tuckman model? This morning we were talking about forming, storming, norming, performing. If you are storming and you avoid conflict, you go back to the forming phase. Everyone is disconnected because they prefer not to work together, because if they work together they have conflict, they have argument, and that argument feels bad. So we prefer to work on our own. How many of you have seen teams, Scrum teams, where no one is working with another person? It's like everyone has their own user story and everyone is working on their user story. Share your pain. Lots of you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being honest about that. I see plenty of them. Why? Because it's easier. Oh, I will just get this. Oh, it's not possible that two people work on this stuff. It's not practical. It's not efficient. Okay, we have to erase words like productivity and efficiency from the environment of people that are trying to solve problems. solving problems and creating the next big thing is not about being very productive and very efficient. You can be very, very productive and very, very efficient and produce twice the crap, twice as fast. And that's not the point at all. We are not trying to produce more crap faster. Okay? So what we're trying to produce is great stuff. And in that case, you have to release the pressure of productivity and efficiency. So when someone says, no, I'm working on this on my own because it's more efficient, ask to yourself, is this more creative? Is this more innovative, having people working on their own? Or does more creativity when people work together and they throw the ball to each other and they get the ball running, and that's where great ideas come from. So we need to get people to collaborate, and in order to get people to collaborate, they need good ways to navigate conflict, different points of view and agreements. If you read the book by Patrick Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he lists dysfunction number 1, lack of trust and vulnerability in the team. People don't want to appear vulnerable, saying, I think that this is a good way of doing it, what do you think about it? Let's talk together, because they don't want to be attacked saying, that's a stupid idea, you know nothing about this. And then what I do is I close myself and I don't share my insights because I worry that other people will make fun of me, and things like that. I was seeing a TED talk recently about and they mentioned this case in a company where there was a guy saying, I think that this new product we are creating is too complex. It's too complicated. Nobody will learn how to use it. But then nobody was saying anything, and everyone was working on the product, and he was like, okay, I don't want to seem like the whistleblower. I don't want to see like the not team player. I don't want people to see me as a not a team player. Oh, you're criticizing the product. But the product kept getting more complicated and more complicated and more complicated until one day he said, I cannot stand it anymore. So he went in the open and he says, the product is too complicated to be used. We have to make simpler products. This just doesn't make sense. And then he found out that mostly everyone else felt the same. They were like, yeah, you're absolutely right. We've known this for a long time. And he was like, why nobody's speaking about that? Oh, probably because, I don't want the manager to be angry at us, saying this is too complicated, this idea you had. But this is the power of bringing conflict to the table. If you just avoid conflict, neglect conflict because you feel vulnerable, you feel lack of trust, saying, oh, if I say this, they will attack me, and they will, ostracize me and isolate me, then there's a lack of trust in your colleagues, and that will make your team immature. You will not mature as a team. Positive conflict. A positive conflict is a conflict that allows change, that allows learning, that allows growth, that allows innovation, that allows many different options to be evaluated in order to choose the better option. That's a positive conflict. We have 7 different ideas, but we can navigate through them all and then create some consensus on what's the best idea that we can use. This is Statoil. I know it was somewhere in the presentation. So positive conflict is a conflict that we can use to create new rules. Like for instance, recently I had a group where we had a conflict because one of the girls in the group got sick and she couldn't come to work in the next morning. But then we realized that she had some 1,000 lines of code, unchecked code in her computer. And that was a problem because we wanted to finish the sprint, but we couldn't because that code was not checked in, and without that code, nothing made sense. So we were like struggling with this conflict, like, oh my God, what can we do? Can we hack her computer? Can we ask her for the password to her computer? And this was like a very big taboo in this company. No, you don't touch other people's computer. You don't ask people for their passwords because all her stuff is there. That's even against the law. Okay, we cannot do that. Oh, can we ask this person to come to work so she can check the code and then go back? Oh, but she's sick. It feels bad. So it was like a big conflict. And the good thing is that once the conflict was over, we created a new rule. Nobody leaves the building with unchecked code. That's a good rule. That's a norm. We start creating basis for collaboration. Don't do this. Not because it's easier to you. For me, it's easier to do 1 check a month. Because, I don't have to care. But it's bad for the team for many reasons. You can break more things. It's difficult to find defects. If everyone is going in different directions and they never check in, you won't find out until you have a big bang integration. And it's going to be pain for everyone. So we create norms. we create ways of working. We have a poster that is called team agreements. And we start putting one post-it note every single time we experience something that is painful, and we create a rule for not experiencing that pain anymore. We put it on a wall. It's team agreements. That's a norm. And that's norming. That's setting the basis for collaboration. That comes from conflict. If there's never conflict, artificial harmony. No, there's no problems here. We never have problems. Everyone has their own projects. Everyone has their own computers. Everyone has their own deadlines. So no problems, no conflict. Then you won't have a collaborating team ever. So conflict levels. There's this book, I wish you know about this book. It's Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Atkins. It's one of the best books on the topics. And Lisa Atkins is the source of what I use as a model for conflict levels. Okay? She says that conflict has different levels. Level 1, it's the positive conflict. We see this conflict as a problem to solve together. How exciting! We have something to work at. We have something to discuss. And we will get new learning and new insights. And we will grow and do things better after this. Oh, cool! So positive conflict, level 1, is something good. We want to have as many of those as possible, because those are learning opportunities. But then we have level number 2. This is not a problem to solve anymore. It starts to look more like a disagreement. Well, you think this and I think that. And you think triangle and I think square. And I say square and you say triangle and you say triangle and I say square. So we get stuck in our postures. And we are not open to other possibilities. And if we remain too much time in disagreement, then probably conflict will move to level number 3. And level number 3 is the dangerous one, which is conflict turns personal. Yeah, you always say triangle because you blah 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 and you blah blah blah. But you never have my problem with triangles, which is this and this and this. So we're not talking about triangles anymore. We're talking about you, and about me, and about this is more easier for you, but it's more difficult for me. And you don't care about me. So now we don't talk triangles and squares anymore. We talk about you, we talk about me. We make it personal. That's like a huge warning sign, a huge red light. When people start talking about you and me and finger pointing and name calling, yeah, that's because you testers never have to deal with blah, blah. Yeah, that's what you developers say. But you are not the ones getting the calls from the customers because the product doesn't work. You and then you, that's level 3 conflict. If we stay on level 3 conflict too much time, and we avoid that, but we don't solve that, we don't actually navigate that, then it turns into a crusade. Then it just, I don't care what's the next thing you will propose, I'm against you. So if it comes from you, I oppose. So now it's ideological, it's faith-based. Okay, you are a Christian and I'm a Muslim, and that's it, that's all. I don't care what you are proposing. If you're proposing, let's build a community pool so we can all swim together, I'm like, no, that's a Christian thing. What? Because it's coming from a Christian and I'm a Muslim and I don't like that, or the other way around, okay, don't get me wrong. So in a crusade, now you have personal enemy, and you don't like anything that's coming from that person, and you never agree with that person, because if I agree with him in something, oh my God, that means we are not enemies anymore. I'm denying my reality and my identity where I am an enemy of that person. Of course, this kind of situations, which happens a lot in companies, this needs to be avoided. You shouldn't come to a point where people have personal enemies in the companies. It shouldn't happen, but it happens all the time. We're human beings, and if people don't know how to navigate conflicts, sooner or later, one conflict will be old enough that you will have enemies. And then, if you remain on a crusade too much time, it turns total war. It's like thermonuclear warfare. I'm going to destroy you. Okay, I stop talking to you. There's a meeting. Is he coming? Yeah. Well, then I'm not going to the meeting. I'm just not meeting that guy. Have you ever been in this situation where you have people in your company that won't speak to each other?
Yes.
This is terrible. This is terrible. This is painful. This is a lot of suffering. This is people that needs to go every single day to a place where they spend 8 hours, 10 hours with a person they hate, with a person they don't talk to anymore. And they are forced to coexist and even to cooperate with that person. That's a very, very bad, very, very painful situation. I've seen people quit their jobs because of this kind of situation. Especially if this person is your boss, for instance, which happens a lot. Because bosses tend to navigate conflicts through the use of coercive power. It's like, I'm gonna do it my way, I'm the boss, conflict is over. But coercive power is a way of aggression and violence. And it's a way of avoiding conflict, but not solving or navigating the conflict. And when you are forced to do something you don't believe in, and you try to argue, and you didn't have the option to discuss and agree, then you feel like you are forced. It's like really, really bad situation. And then you move to crusade, or personal, or total war. So the thing is that when you have a conflict that is hard enough, what Lisa Atkins proposed is you have to figure out in which part of this conflict you are right now. Like for instance, and then you have to be scaled level by level. I'm going to tell another story about myself. I had this situation with a person. I had a problem with this person, okay? But this person also had a problem with the rest of the company, okay? Everyone was having problems with this person, or mostly everyone. I knew several people that had stopped talking to this person. So it was not only about me and her, but it was something reiterated, okay? Anyway, I had my own part of guilt, and those days I wasn't aware of ego stuff and listening, so I was really, I had a big problem with my ego, and basically all the problems I had with this person were ego-based. Her ego was like gigantic. My ego was close. So that was a huge clash of egos, and it didn't end well. Well, we were this close to stop talking to each other. We were in crusade mode, crusade. And then one day we got called by the chief executive officer of the company. Oh my God. So we go to the chief executive officer office. He sits us down and he says, you two have to be like a marriage. You have to like each other and be fine and good to each other and get along each other. So now go and be friends. That's it. Do you think it worked? Nah. What this guy was trying in a very, very bad way was to escape from crusade to collaborating and problem to solve. It doesn't work that way. You have to go level by level. So, for instance, if you have people in total war, they are not talking to each other, keep them separated. Because if you put them together, they're going to hurt each other. Or they're going to, someone is going to punch someone in the face. Instead of that, try diplomacy. Go to one person and say, well, I know you are hurt because this person did this and this and this, but also this person is saying that first you did this and this and that. What? What he's not telling you about is that he did this and this and this, and then you go to the other person and say, oh, she's concerned that you did that and that and that and that. What? I didn't do that, and I didn't even know that she was, I don't know, that she was upset about it. She should have told me about this problem. So I go to the other person and I would say, well, he's concerned that you didn't tell him about the problem. So I will start doing like diplomacy because they don't talk to each other. And now they need someone to be starting to. So I start to create the grounds to a new understanding where we still agree to cooperate, but we still are on crusade mode. I don't hope that they will start liking to each other spontaneously because I solved the conflict. But at least I can put them in the same room and make them talk to each other. Well, now we are in a crusade. If we are in a crusade, there are several other things I can do in order to start, moving to a new level. Like for instance, I can start addressing emotions. And you are like, yeah, but you are always blah, 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 and stop the personal messages. And say, no, let's not make it about this person and his posture. We're discussing only this topic. And try to make people be specific about the topic we are discussing today, not about this person and her posture and the general crusade. So we make it only about one thing, one specific thing. So that is not a crusade anymore. It's about personal attacks, you and me and me and you. And when we are in a personal attack, I will start addressing those emotions. And I will start to say, did you see how you, in the meeting today, you started being loud and you started banging on the table? Do you feel that this is a correct way? How do you feel when people do that to you? Oh yeah, I know, but it's this person. He drives me nuts. No, but I feel that you are putting the blame in that person. and he's not in control of your emotions. You must be in control of your emotions. Yeah, you're right, but it's so difficult. I will start, working this kind of stuff with both of them until I can bring them down to a point where they disagree. I don't need them to like each other. But if they can disagree on things and not make it personal, and not make personal attacks, and not finger point and blame and name call, well, that's another way of doing things. That's better. Especially it doesn't affect the rest of the team that much. And then if we are in that stage, then we can move progressively to, we disagree, but let's solve it, let's negotiate. Sometimes I never reach the perfect level 1 conflict. Sometimes we are always in disagreement. No, yes, no, this. And then what I need is a framework to take decisions. Because it cannot take forever to reach consensus. If we cannot agree, we have to decide on something. And we need a framework to take these kind of decisions about this something. So, the important point is level 3. If you are fast and catch people at level 3, and you never let them age the conflict until it becomes a crusade or a total war, then you can start practicing your coaching skills on the scaling level 3 conflicts. When conversation has turned personal, and people start saying you and me, and pointing at the other person, in this point, the first thing you have to do is watch for the red alerts, like when people start using names and figure all that. And also, try to watch the triggers, because sometimes we are like discussing something, and then suddenly out of the nothing, someone starts saying, no, and gets so angry. Try to figure out what changed, what happened. Is because this person was already angry, and was furious, and was in a corner, and I didn't notice until he exploded? Or he came in a good mood, and progressively he started being in a worse mood, and then suddenly he's like really, really upset. What was the thing that really turned the person upset? Because sometimes it's not, most of the time, it's not about the fact. It can be the person that proposed the fact, it can be something about how this fact or this solution that we are discussing is affecting him specifically. Try to watch the trigger, because sometimes it's not about the fact. One thing that you have to understand, we didn't have time this morning to explain that, but one of the hardwirings of our brain is the emotional hijack. We mentioned that emotions always play first. Okay, so sometimes we are trying to be rational with someone, but that someone is in deep emotional state. And in that case, rational discourse doesn't work very good. That's the reason that sometimes you're discussing with your wife or with your husband, and you are like, where are my keys? And your wife says, well, they are where you always leave them. No, they're not here. Someone has taken my keys. No, nobody takes your keys, honey. Have you looked everywhere? Yes, I look everywhere. Have you looked at your pockets? Do you think I'm stupid? Please, take a second look at your pockets. And then you have the keys. And then you are like, the problem is that you don't love me. You don't understand me. You never. And you are like, how did we end up in you don't love me from I can find my keys and I'm distracted and stressed and I have my keys in my pocket and I cannot figure out. But then it's like absolutely irrational. And if you try to make that person see how this is irrational, that's not the way to proceed. That person, the first thing that she's asking for is a hug. Come on, kid. Come on, there. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I know. Life is hard many times. You want some candy? You have chocolate. That's the first thing you have to do. De-scale emotions. Not try to think, and when you are angry, you don't want someone to demonstrate you rationally with a whiteboard that you are being stupid. Because that's gonna make you more angrier. So try to watch for the trigger and watch for emotions and try to address emotions instead of reasons. Reasons you can use on levels 1 and 2. If we are on level 3, stop reasoning, stop discussion about the fact, address the issue that we became emotional. And when we can lower down that emotions, we go back to discussing the item. Don't keep discussing databases when people feel that they are being attacked and might lose their jobs. Stop the database discussion Make sure everyone understands that we believe that you are the most terrific team we've ever had, and this is not about you, this is about technology and evolution, and that everyone's job is secure, and we count on you for the next 2 years, and that's the reason you are here, and that we are counting on you for this Oracle database that's going to be here like forever, and you are the guys that are going to make it possible. And once people get comfortable with that, we say, okay, let's go back to the discussion about the database. The problem is many times people are like, oh, Oracle is crap! And you're like, yeah, that's probably why they are the biggest company in databases in the world. That's stupid what you're saying. And then the person that is emotional, you're calling him stupid, now he has a second trigger to become emotional and hate you. So you have to separate emotional descaling from reasonable facilitation of the thing that we are discussing. Descaling level 3, how can you do that? Well, number one, also always assume positive intention. People are not trying to ruin your day just for the fun, okay? People are not brushing their teeth in the morning saying, how can I ruin ScrumMasters Day? Oh wait, I have an idea. No, they are being really, really, you know, yeah, it seems, I know. No matter how sure you are about that, believe me, it's not like that. I've been into their heads. It's not like that. Okay? Well, you know, 2% of the population and 20% of the managers are psychopaths. Okay? 2%. So if you have a company that is big enough and you don't have a good human resource department doing a proper scanning, then maybe 2% of your colleagues are psychopaths, okay, or sociopaths. That's people that don't care about other people's pain, suffering, and emotion. They just play for themselves. But even sociopaths and psychopaths, they're not thinking, how can I hurt you? It's only that if you've swallowed a key and I need a key, I will open you and I will get the key from your stomach. I don't see why that's a bad thing. I needed the key. That's a sociopath or a psychopath. But that doesn't mean that that person has a positive intention. He wants the keys. He's going to work in a car. And he doesn't see that that's a bad thing. It's not evil. Okay? It's not like I'm going to make you suffer just for the sake of suffering. That's a very twisted mind. That's probably someone that is ill. So anyway, number one, assume always positive intention. Even when people are being really, really rude to you and are hurting you, maybe they don't even figure out that they are hurting you. I remember one day, I was working at Ericsson. And there was a team that was really, really upset. They were going through some difficult times. And there was a couple of persons in this team, Spaniards, and they were really, really loud, passionate, and, you know, they liked a discussion and disagreement and arguing for the sake of arguing. And that day, they were really, really upset. And they were really, really in an emotional, in a very, very high emotional pitch. They were like, no, because this is always crap, and it's always the same crap, and we're crap this and crap that. And that day, I was really, really tired. And I was like, please, can we turn down the emotional volume, like, I don't know, 2 million octaves? Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, and then again. And I was like, it was really hurting me. And I was like, look, listen, I really would like and appreciate that we lower down the emotional volume. Second time, they kept it going. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I said, you know what, you are not understanding my situation. Let me explain. I have been traveling for 11 days now. I haven't been at home, at my home for 11 days. And I have a kid. He's 5-year-old, I don't know at that time. And I haven't seen him for 10 days. I find myself sleeping at hotels alone every single night, and I can't see my kid and my dog, which is an old dog. He's 11 years old now, but he's still like a puppy. And I know that I have very, very small, very limited amount of time, very few years to enjoy my dog. Probably it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years. And right now I really, really feel disconnected from home. And I'm in a very, very, sad mood. And then you are bringing all this to me. And it's really, really hurting me because I don't feel I'm strong enough today to take it. And I'm sorry. That changed the whole thing. Because they connected to my needs and to my suffering. And it was true. It came out of, I'm so tired today and you're bringing all this crap thing to me. And I'm trying to empathize with that, but that also means that I resonate with it. And you're really, really hurting me. And then they were like, oh, we are so sorry. We didn't realize. And for the rest of the week, there was like the most amazing, perfect, paradise, unicorns, rainbows team ever. And it was only a matter of de-scaling the emotional tone and getting back to doing things better. And we got very, very good results in that specific week. And it was also only because I was able to de-scale the emotional conflict that they had in that moment. Okay, so connect, be genuinely curious about what's hurting you, and also share with people how you are being hurt by the conflict and the feelings. And that's a very good way to de-scale level 3. So I'm going to also give you 3 or 4 slides about how to navigate conflicts. Let's see if I can make a little bit more on time this time. But before you start dealing with conflicts on your teams, there's a checklist, a couple of things you have to check for. Like number 1, are we ready, in the sense that has everyone been trained in how to deal with conflict? Don't try this Jedi mind trick thing where you are the coach and the facilitator, and even though they don't know anything about conflict, I will navigate them through conflict and make them make positive conflict. Instead of that, talk to them about conflict and about the things you see and about what you're learning about how to deal with conflict, and try to create an agreement on how would you like to deal with these kind of situations in the future. That would be my first advice. Be sure we are ready. Number 2, assess what's the level. We can do this if we are still on a level 1, 2, 3 maybe. If there's total war, don't talk to people about being open and connecting because they won't get it, okay? Descale to some place where you can work at. Level 3 is a place to start. If necessary, descale by diplomacy and by addressing emotions and trying to be specific about the problem until we are on level 3, and then we can open this discussion about how do we navigate conflict in the future. Okay, train everyone. We were discussing this morning that training, people receive feedback, and even if you are the best feedback giver in the world, people are very, very bad at receiving opinions and feedback from others. So you have to train people and get them prepared for receiving opinions from other people, and for other people disagreeing with them and saying it's okay if people disagree with you. It's not about you. They are not disagreeing with you. They are disagreeing with this idea or this way of doing things. And maybe tomorrow they will agree on something else you will propose. Prepare people to be in conflict. So the tools for navigating conflict, I mentioned here, cultivating a growth culture. If people say, oh, this thing about locking ourselves for an hour in a room and discussing something is a huge waste of time. This is counterproductive. I'm more efficient if I stay at my table, at my desk, programming and doing code. Well, that's not a growth culture. That's not a learning company. If we define ourselves as a learning company, learning many times implies learning from others and collaborating with others. If we have created a culture where we say teams are important, mean it. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't tell me anymore, 10 people in a room for 2 hours, that's 20 hours of work. That's counting beans. Instead of looking at that as your innovation, learning, and growth engine. If you're looking at it that way, you won't start measuring the hours and the minutes that people spend and trying to figure out how to measure the productivity of such a meeting. It's nonsense. It's industrial talk from the 1900s, from the 20th century. Productivity and costs. This is like for building cars, but not for solving problems, which is what our companies do. Of course, stay positive, turn negative feedback into positive feedback, turn no, this won't work into, well, I feel this other thing will work, or maybe this will work in this situation, but I feel it has this problem, maybe we can find a solution for this problem. Because right now I feel that your idea is a good idea, thank you for that, but I feel that there will be a problem with this, instead of it won't work, which is like, bah, level 1, listening. I don't care about this crap you're telling about. Or level 2, I have the solution. Stop bugging me with your stupid ideas. I'm the smart guy. Move to level 3, level 4 in order to navigate conflict. So tools for navigating conflicts. Number 1, awareness. Same thing I said this morning about ego. The first thing is to be aware of the conflict, to be aware of how people navigate the conflict, how people react to conflict. I had this person, was a lady in a company I was working at recently, and when she was discussing things, she had this trend to use her hands, but in a very threatening mode. It's like, no, 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 you! And I was, I was this close to I was this close to dodge the movement and say, oh, this lady is gonna punch me, because it was getting really, really physical. And I had to talk to this lady. And of course the answer was that I could predict that. She was like, oh, that's the way I talk. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if you say, this is how I talk, this is how I express myself, this is how I am, trying to do something else is denying myself. But every single time I do this, I reaffirm my identity, and ego is addicted to reaffirming your identity. So we worked with this person, and the transition was amazing. 3 or 4 months later, she was a different person. She was not aggressive anymore. She was still very passionate, but a lot of this aggressiveness had disappeared. I'm sorry?
She still had her hands, right?
No! No, she still has hands. I thought, I understood, what I understood is she still using the hands in that way? No. She still have the hands. That would be a very good, fast solution. But that's level 2. I have a solution. That's not empathic. So, when you are in a conflict, number 1, be aware about the conflict. Gather information. Be genuinely curious, which is something that we were also working at when we were talking about listening. Be curious about the conflict. Instead of defending your opinion, no, let's do this. Try to learn more about what other people are expressing, what other people are proposing. Number 2, clarify. Try to be sure that you understood that this person is are you talking about cutting this person's hand? No, that's not what I meant. Oh man, woof, I wasn't getting very good. Or maybe it's like, I thought he was saying, so restating is something that works very good for me. Restating and summarizing, agreeing on the problem, this works miracles. I've been at discussions where people have been passionately discussing for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then suddenly I was like, you know what, I'm lost. I don't even know what are we discussing anymore. Can we agree on what's the one thing we are discussing? No, what we are discussing is that he's doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm like, no. Let's write a question in the whiteboard. Not you and me and this and that. Let's write a question. And then I started writing, and he says, well, what we are discussing is, shall we use the data center to allocate space for the servers? And then someone else says, no, that's not the problem we are discussing. And I'm like, no wonder. No wonder we cannot get to an agreement. They are talking about 2 different problems. So they will never agree. And then we iterate the question, and once the question is on the board, I say, is this the question that we are trying to answer? And they say, yes. And I say, well, so where's the conflict? And then they look to each other and say, no, there's no conflict. We all agree on one solution to that answer. And I'm like, okay, good news, meeting over. Then we will talk about other things in another meeting. But many times we start like, when that thing happens, it might be a crusade. It might be we were talking about the servers and the data center, but you took the options to attack another person about how he's communicating with the rest of the people and how he's always deciding on himself. That's another discussion. Can we please have one discussion at a time? Trying to juggle with 3 discussions at a time, I cannot do that. Sorry. I'm too clumsy. They always come to the floor. I can do 1 discussion at a time. That I can try. So, stay in the other people's posture. When someone disagrees with you, asking them to say, well, can you please defend his posture? Even if you don't agree. But can you summarize, what do you think are his arguments? Many times I'm like, I can't figure out what arguments do you have to propose that, because that's stupid. And that's true. If you can't argue the other person's posture, you basically think that the other person is stupid. But if you make the effort to say, well, why this person is defending that? Well, maybe, yeah, of course, you are seeing the obvious benefits of this and this and this and this. And you're like, crap, maybe it's not that bad idea. Oh, but then you have the trade-off, which is this and this. And then the other person does the same. So now we see that even if you disagree with me, you understand me. So seeking for understanding is one of the things we were working this morning in the listening levels. We can do that also on a team level, asking people to state the other person's posture. And what do you think is the reason that this person is defending that? And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I understand you defend that, because then it's easier to you for this and this and this. And then the other person says, no, that's not the reason I'm defending it. Of course it's easier for me, but the reason I'm defending this is this and this and this and this. And you're like, oh crap, I didn't know. So restating the other person's posture is something we can do if we are still on a positive conflict, not attacking to each other. But it's also a way to descale level 3. Yeah, you think he's stupid. Can you please elaborate on his arguments? Why this person, which is a proper human being and has positive intention and is looking for happiness and to stop suffering, why would he propose this? There must be something good in it. It's maybe that I don't see it, or it's not good for me. Number 3, analyze how your option is affecting others. Sometimes it's like, I don't understand why this person will oppose dropping Sybase and moving to Oracle. And then you are like, oh, but maybe it's because he's very knowledgeable in Sybase and he knows nothing about Oracle. So now he's not discussing the database anymore. He's discussing his status as a database administrator in the company once we create the transition. Maybe the problem here is fear. It's not about the database anymore. So it's fear, then it's an emotion. We have to stop talking about the database. We have to stop talking about fear, about emotions, about how is this affecting you. Wrong discussion. This is not about Oracle. This is about the fear of losing our jobs if a new technology comes by and we don't know how to adapt to that technology. Different discussion. Maybe even not a discussion anymore. Maybe it's a point where you can stop the discussion, meet with this person, and listen to him at level 3, level 4, until this person realizes that this is not a problem anymore. Okay? So, see how different options affect different people, and see what parts of the option you can live with, and what parts you cannot live with. Sometimes the options we are discussing are not like a closed packet. We can take part of it and discard another part of it. And then you are like, well, maybe I can live without that. Okay, that's a way to create an opinion. Seek for other options also. Number 4, focus on the solutions. People talk a lot of time about why this won't work. That's problem talk. Instead of that, start thinking about how can we make it work. It's like, no, Agile will never work at our company because middle managers don't believe in it. Instead of that, you can make the same statement saying, in order to make Agile work at our company, we need middle managers to understand it. That's a positive construction. Which one does the brain likes more? What do you think? The brain, the id, that's like better, nah, it will never work here. Managers won't understand it. That one, why?
It's easier.
It's easier. Because if it will never work here, there's nothing to be done. It's over. But if we say, in order to make it work, you have to do this and this and this, oh crap, now I have a bucket list of things to do. I don't feel like doing it. I prefer to say, no, it won't work. Because it's easy, it means saving energy and doing less things. That's your ego at work. That's your id, talking to your ego and scheming against you. Your brain is not your friend. Okay, so make people stop talking about problems and talk about solutions. Don't tell me it's not going to work. Tell me what do we have to do in order to work, or tell me what will work. So we can start thinking about how to solve the problem instead of discussing the things that won't. Also, try to see what have worked in the past. How close are we right now? Instead of looking at the full resolution of the conflict, what would be a small improvement on the conflict? Sometimes you don't need to solve the whole problem, but maybe just make it a little bit better. One step at a time. This is Kaizen. This is Toyota Kata. What would be the next step? Can we focus on one small step that will make things better? That's also a good way to navigate conflict. And then you can negotiate. Like, can you support a time-bound test? If we do this for 30 days, do you agree to try your best with your best, what will be the word? Will you be engaged? Because sometimes it's like, yeah, I will try for sure. And then they try to sabotage this, because if it succeeds, it means that we have to do this and I don't like it. But if we say, do you agree on a time test? You have to say, well, I don't agree on the thing, but I will try for 30 days and I will do my best And later on, then we'll discuss the results. And if it works, okay, I'm the first to say it worked. But if it didn't, then we will try something different. Well, this is negotiating. If you tell people we are going to do Scrum from now on, forever, people will resist. Because changing the environment means changing the people. But if you say, hey, why don't we try Scrum for a couple of months and then see if it suits our environment or not? A couple of months. Well, a couple of months is something that you can tolerate. Because if recently I was able to overcome a group of laggards saying, this is not going to work, this is going to fail, this is going to be a disaster. And I told them, well, if you are so sure that it's going to fail, let us do it. Because if in 2 months it fails, it's going to be easier for you guys to present the case against Agile and Scrum, because it's going to be failing so fantastically. And they said, okay. 2 months later, things were better. So there was no case anymore. And now we could talk about facts and not about preconceived ideas of what Agile is. So making it time-bound is also a way of negotiating an exit to the conflict. If you still have conflict, and I promise I'm finished, sorry. This is the first time I'm doing these talks, and it always happens. The first time it goes longer than I expect. I look at it and I'm like, 25 slides. Oh, this is like 10 minutes. Oh, I need more slides. But then I forget that I tend to be, a storyteller. If you still have conflict, well, maybe it's not a bad thing. Some conflicts are intimate to a team. Some conflicts will be there forever. And sometimes it's not a bad thing. There's a research by some Dr. Gottman. He was following several couples for 25, 30, 40 years. And he analyzed the conflicts in these couples. And he saw that after 40 years, there were most of the couples have some conflicts that they were talking about 40 years ago, and they were still talking about that conflict today. And it's like, it's not solved, but they were still married and happy. Then, there were some other couples that have some conflicts, and then people got divorced because they couldn't stand those conflicts. And then they married again, but then they had a new set of conflicts, and they couldn't stand this new set of conflicts. So they divorced again, and then they married again, and then they had a new set of conflicts. And they couldn't stand this set of conflicts, and they divorced, and they married again. And it happened again, and they couldn't divorce anymore because they don't have any money in order to pay for a fourth divorce. No? Or they don't have the strength to survive a fourth divorce. No? But sometimes it happens to us. It has certainly happened to me. I've been at a company, I had a conflict, and I say, I quit. I went to another company. And everything is fine until 3 years later, or 4 years later, I start running into a conflict, and I don't like it, and I quit. And I go to another company. Only to find new conflicts. And sometimes quitting can be a reasonable exit, but sometimes if you keep quitting, then you never realize how to navigate these conflicts in a positive way. And maybe sometimes you will say, yeah, my boss is stupid, but you know what, my colleagues are awesome. And the food is amazing. And they have these neat computers that they change every single year, so we have the most amazing stuff. So, stupid boss, computers, food, friends, 3 to 1. That's a good rate. Dr. Gottman finds that the couples that had 5 to 1 rates in things I like in this person versus conflicts I have with this person, this was a very good prediction on how well that couple will perform over time. And he said that even 3 to 1 is a good ratio to survive conflict. Try always to remember that sometimes we are not going to solve this conflict, but hey, there are also many other good things about your colleagues, your teams. There are several stuff that we are doing. I recently failed in a transformation, and it was an ego thing. Last year I was coaching a company, and we did a lot of stuff. But then I proposed to do something, and they say, no, and they rejected it. And the ego kicked in, and they say, oh, I have proved you several times that when you follow my advice, good things happen. And also sometimes I'm giving you advice and you decided not to follow my advice and then bad things happen. And now I'm giving you advice and guess what? You're not following my advice. Well, then I don't know why you're paying for a consultant anymore. I guess we can kill this gig over. That was me. And that was last year, okay, pretty recently. And it was, emotional response. It was my ego responding to, you are not following my consultant mind, being the smartest guy in the room. And that means that I stopped working with this company, But I didn't stop to say, okay, they are rejecting this idea, but they also say yes to another 25 ideas I throw at them. And they say yes to every single one of them. So that was my mistake, not looking at this 25-to-1 radio and say, this is a pretty damn good radio. Let's keep proposing things. They're not taking this one. Let's choose another battle. That's an advice I want to share with you as Scrum Masters. You won't win every battle. But the war is like really, really long. It's going to last all your career. If you don't win a battle, that's fine. That's fine. Move to the next one. Pick another battle. That's going to be your career for you the rest of your life, or your rest of your professional career. And that's good. That's fine. Don't be stressed by that. Okay? We can talk stress. I can talk stress. You know, I see product owners that spend their whole life stressed because they are not making the deadlines. And I'm like, guess what? I have bad news for you. You'll never make the deadlines through the rest of your career. That's the nature of projects. And if you get stressed by that, you're going to be stressed ever. But if you are like, yeah, okay, we're not meeting the deadlines. It's not the first time it happens. Okay, we've been here before, and we survived, and sometimes we even didn't meet the deadline, but we were happy because the project had very, very good results. So guess what? Okay, we'll try to make it better next time. No problem. Same thing here. Try to figure out what's the next battle. If you lose one, move to another one. Sometimes it's like, okay, we're not solving this conflict. We can live with it. Move to the next conflict. But also, be careful if you realize that conflicts come because you have one person that is a conflicted person and it's something personal and it's something about one individual. If it's about one individual, different talk. Then we have to talk about coaching this person, training this person, maybe moving that person around and trying with a different group because maybe there's a problem with characters and how people talk to each other and all this kind of stuff. This can be a separate case. But I don't believe that this is the more general case. The most general case is we cannot disagree on a constructive way. So okay, that was it. Probably an hour.